Hello everyone, I am Duke and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be looking at the Heretic Legions and their forces. If you're new to the channel or the lore of TrenchCrusade, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, let me know which faction you'd like to see on a deep dive next. If you enjoy this video, remember to drop a like below or share it with a friend, but without further ado, let's go. Throughout history in TrenchCrusade there have been those who worship Yahweh, and there have been those who have chosen the darker path of the heretic. What we would recognise as the Heretic Legions have ancient precursors in the setting's distant past. For example, far before the Hellgate opened, Beelzebub was worshipped in Ekron. Then there is the group of heretical Templars that are responsible for the events now known as the Ultimate Heresy. These two heretic groups are likely some of the earliest examples of organised heretic forces that we have in the setting so far. However, what we would recognise as the Legions began shortly after 1099. When the ritual that destroyed Jerusalem and opened the Hellgate brought forth the Legions of Hell, it also seemed to greatly increase the corrupting influence of the archdevils on the mortal soul. 1/3 of humanity fell to Hell's corrupting influence in the aftermath of the Ultimate Heresy and founded the first of what we would see as the modern-day Heretic Legions. In 1101, from the lands surrounding the Vale of Tears in Jerusalem, the heretics established bases of operations to raid the faithful nations. With the backing of their demon allies, the year of 3 battles ended with much of the Levant being captured and brought under heretic and demonic control. By and large, this area of the world has remained firmly under the control of Hell since the beginning of the Great War, though it has changed its borders somewhat over the centuries. The faithful have launched many raids into heretic heartlands, infiltrated it with spies, and even on at least one occasion, missionaries have attempted to convert them back to the worship of the Lord. While the lands of the Levant are constantly changing hands piece by piece, and spies are commonplace, the story of the 17 martyrs is a tragic one for the faithful. In 1117, the legendary 17 martyrs set forth on a pilgrimage into the earthly domains of Hell, venturing into the heretic heartlands on a mission to convert them back to faith in the Lord. Their story ends about as successfully as you would expect. Although I suppose in fairness to them they weren't exactly actually killed, just captured, tortured and kept alive to this day in white-hot brazen bulls. For about 700 years, the 17 martyrs have been under constant torture within the brazen bulls. Whether their unnatural longevity is due to demonic influence or divine intervention, I honestly think I'd have rather died. Regarding the spies of the faithful, those who haven't been corrupted, captured or killed return to tell grim tales of what they have seen. The heretic heartlands have great altars to Baal. Here supplicants sacrifice firstborn children to the glory of demonic patrons. Great factories sprawl across the lands made of flesh and metal, constantly spewing thick smoke into the air and blackening the sky. These factories are where the infernal metallurgists, biologists and weaponsmiths hone and perfect their craft. More on their creations later. In the markets and bazaars, captured mortals are sold as slaves to the court and heretic warbands. Some are used as sacrificial fuel and others are pressed into service as wretched. Human flesh is sold by the pound in the markets, and altars to the golden calf are surrounded by heretical men and women who offer these craven idols worship. Great cities descend down into vast pits. Inverted pyramids and towers wrought from iron and black stone plunge into the depths of these pits, and great cathedrals to the princes of Hell hang from great arches of volcanic stone. At the base of these pits, captives are sliced open and tortured over many weeks with basalt knives as they are sacrificed, and inverted crosses crucify the condemned. As the war raged on, Beelzebub grew in power and the corpse wars concluded. The heretics managed to hold on to their heartlands. In 1573, the heretic domains expanded their territories once again with the destruction of Byzantium. The Heretic Legions destroyed Byzantium and almost completely wiped out its military there, with a relatively small number of the Varangian Guard escaping the devastation. From here, the Heretic campaign tried to push on into Wallachia, but they were intercepted by the Order of the Dragon. The Order of the Dragon pushed back the Heretic Legions and utterly defeated them, ending their advance into Wallachian lands. In a brutal display of defiance, the Order of the Dragon impaled 1 million heretics in the foothills of Wallachia and surrounding Targovishta to warn against further incursions in their region. The loss of a mere million heretics is nothing to the forces of Hell, and while the map may appear to show them as a predominantly land-based force, this couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the Heretic Legions boast the most powerful warships on the high seas, and through a series of technological advancements and well-executed campaigns, they have gained naval superiority. That is not to say that the faithful warships cannot battle the Heretic Navy at sea, but on an individual level, the Heretic Navy have the faithful outgunned and outclassed. With the defeat of the English Navy by Admiral Ranger and the death of Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Bloody Cliffs, the naval supremacy of the Heretics was all but assured. This was made far worse when the Heretics were able to gain access to the first modern submarine fleets. The submarines were invented by infernal weaponsmiths at the Warforges of Tartarus in 1866 under the direction of the demon Marbas. From here, raids on Gibraltar, Cordoba and Rijeka would solidify the Heretics' base of operations on the Atlantic and give them access to faithful heartlands by sea. With successive raids on faithful nations from land and sea, the Heretics have captured many faithful lands and harass many more. This brief overview of their history is only a small glimpse into the achievements of the Heretic Legions. To this day, the Heretic Legions lead the faithful in the race for technological advancement and maintain naval supremacy in almost all locations on the high seas. The Heretic Legions may have fallen to corruption and the demon lords they serve may be constantly fighting among themselves, but the legions are well organised, well equipped and a grave threat to the faithful. The leadership of Heretic Legion warbands are an infernal mirror of their faithful counterparts in the faithful nations. Unholy priests and preachers chant hymns and extol the corrupted virtues of their demonic masters. The first of these heretic clergy that lead the Legion's warbands are the heretic priests. These are either heretics who have taken up the infernal gospel of hell, or fallen clerics and holy men who now spread corruption and damnation for their new masters. The Gospels spoken by a heretic priest are powerful, carrying an infernal magical quality that beseeches demonic creatures to aid the priest with goetic magic and causes faithful ears to bleed while their eyeballs rupture in their sockets. Due to their favour as conduits of their infernal faith and heralds of their patron, a demonic vitality flows through their veins, making heretic priests incredibly hard to kill. When facing a heretic priest, their enemy should be wary of the powerful, coercive magics that these foul demagogues employ. They are able to temporarily warp the minds of their enemies and puppet their bodies to insidious purpose. While commanding an enemy soldier, they may impel them to leap from buildings, run out of cover, draw them into unwinnable combats, or make them flee from a fight they would otherwise have held the advantage in. The priests are skilled melee fighters and unerringly accurate shots at range. With their skill and unholy power, they are more than a match for any war prophet of the pilgrims, lieutenant of New Antioch, or even the deadly Ubazi of the Iron Sultanate. Sworn to the service of demon lords, these vile men and women will gather warbands of the Legion around them and march into the Levant to exact a terrible cost from their foes, be that faithful or any warband of their lord's rivals that get in the way. Where the heretic priests are an obvious and immediately identifiable threat on the battlefield, the Heretic Legions have hidden, insidious agents at their disposal to act in the shadows and bring about death to the unsuspecting. The unseen hand of the warband and deadly vessels of their patron's will, a death commando is a true terror given form. Throughout the history of the Great War, death commandos have been instrumental in enacting some of the worst atrocities and surgical strikes on the faithful. For example, it was death commandos who were responsible for the destruction of the fortress monastery at Velerad. This almost cost the faithful the teachings of Saint Methodius, and would have rendered the craft of making shrine anchorites lost to time, were it not for the escape of a lone brother of the order. By far though, one of the most decisive blows that the death commandos have enacted was during the events of 1894, now known as the Year of the Broken Trinity. In complete secrecy, with the exact method of how they did so still unknown to the faithful, 3 of the most deadly and infamous death commandos simultaneously assassinated the Supreme Pontiff, the High Prophetess Elia, and the Holy Roman Emperor. Haman, Barabbas and Cain set out from Inferno and slew these 3 leaders of the faithful in a coordinated strike so impactful it threw the faithful nations into turmoil. The resulting chaos from these unexpected and unexplained assassinations gave the Heretic Legions and the forces of Hell's Seventh Circle the opening they needed. With the faithful still in turmoil, a combined force of Heretic Legions, the demons of Hell's Seventh Circle, and a huge vanguard of tanks stormed the Levant, causing massive losses to the faithful nations. The death commandos are able to achieve such feats due to blasphemous stealth generators. These unholy devices not only shield the death commando from the eyes of their enemies, but also from the eyes of God himself. This is due to the utilization of the heart of an innocent infused into the technologies powering the device. This effectively allows them to vanish from view, and combined with their already stealthy serpentine-like movements means that seeing a death commando before it is too late is all but impossible. Trained in the 7th layer of Inferno by the personal guard of the Archdevil of Wrath Beleth, there are no greater masters of the art of murder. The death commandos are trained from childhood to kill and murder in every way conceivable, even ways that others could never imagine. Upon completion of this training, the death commandos' tongues are ripped out, so they may never disclose the secrets of their arts or intelligence and knowledge they hold. While death commandos may be seen carrying silenced pistols or the horrific tormentor chains with which they will ensnare their prey, their favoured weapon are their Tartarus claws. The Tartarus claws are a set of twin gauntlets that end in razor-sharp talons. During the forging process of these ungodly weapons, they are quenched in the waters of the river Styx. This imbues the claws with a poison more potent than any toxin on the mortal plane, and enables them to truly revel in the act of a close-up and personal kill. Hiding in plain sight and vanishing from view as they use any method of cover to their predatory advantage, a death commando is the most terrifying mortal enemy you can encounter in the Levant. Even when a death commando is not infiltrating ahead of their warband or using cover to completely disappear from view, their stealth generators act to make them a truly challenging target to hit at range, and often the best sharpshooters will fail to find them in their sights. While the heretic priest will assail your faith and a death commando will rip apart your mortal form, the choristers of the Heretic Legions will tear apart your very mind. A chorister is a sickening creature, sinful and depraved to the extreme. These are the heretics who are either born or coerced into service of hell, with little prospects of rising in the ranks of the Heretic Legions, but still possess a desire and determination to excel in the eyes of their demonic patrons. While the villainous cretin that would become a heretic chorister may lack the charisma and leadership skills of a heretic priest, what they do possess is a sonorous, almost siren-like voice and a faith in the unholy gospel so profound it literally transcends death. Travelling on an unholy pilgrimage to one of the black altars that lay beneath the inverted pyramids, these repulsive creatures will enact one of the greatest, most sinful affronts to God that any individual may perform. Donning ritualistic robes in a show of their depraved devotion, the would-be choristers will lay upon the altars to their patron Here they will mutilate themselves to the point of death. The greater and greater acts of self-mutilation they achieve will earn them greater and greater favour with their patrons. The zenith of this ritual culminates in their self-beheading. As they cut and saw into their own throats, the longer and longer they endure and prolong their suffering increases the likelihood of the acceptance of their self-sacrifice. However, the whims of the demon lords are fickle, and due to their empowerment by mortal suffering, they often ignore devotees and refrain from granting them the empowerment they seek, indulging in their suffering and giving nothing in return. It is unsurprising then that this is the end of the journey for many who would choose the path of the Chorister. Those deemed unworthy by the demons they serve are tossed into the lake of fire, their souls damned by their sinful act, and their suffering insufficient to gain their Lord's favour. If by some vanishingly small chance they are able to perform the ritual to their patron's satisfaction, the Chorister will awaken after 9 days. Their first task is to finish off the grisly act of their own beheading. Rising to their feet, they will lift their own severed heads aloft as they are granted undeath. Their severed heads will sing the gospel of hell that they learned upon their journeys into Inferno. From the vicious wounds on their neck, their blood will spurt and burble, forming infernal runes and diabolic symbols that match their horrific dirge. Due to the nature of their creation, Choristers are exceedingly rare in the Heretic Legions, and thankfully so. For any who hear the mournful, terrifying dirge of the Choristers, their resolve is weakened, their mind racked with the visions and horrors of Inferno, and their strength sapped by bearing witness to the gospel of hell. Many a fresh recruit in the forces of New Antioch has heard the crippling, unholy sound of a Chorister's song. It is a sad and sickening truth that these poor souls will never recover from hearing the Chorister's song, and the great hospitals of New Antioch have entire wings dedicated to the care of these raving, insane shells of former soldiers lost to madness. The main body of the Heretic Legion warbands are made up of their heretic troopers. These are men and women who have turned from the divine light of Yahweh and chosen the path of damnation in service to their patrons. Should a heretic trooper wish to do so, they can attempt to join the ranks of their warband as a fully fledged legionnaire. To earn the dark honour of becoming a legionnaire is no easy undertaking and requires a deadly pilgrimage to achieve. The heretic must travel the great roads leading to the Vale of Tears and attempt to reach the great bronze gates of hell itself. On the quite literal road to damnation, as they journey to the gates of hell, they will pass the charred corpses and wailing lamentations of those who have faltered on the pilgrimage. These bodies still hold the souls of failed aspirants within them, half alive and trapped in an agonizing state between life and death, as punishment for their lack of the required level of wickedness to succeed in their task. The failures will remain in this tortured state as a punishment without end until Judgment Day comes, but to make it in sight of the Hellgate will result in the heretic being deemed worthy enough to become a fully initiated legionnaire. The legionnaire will then take unbreakable infernal vows that will chain their soul to damnation for eternity. Their bodies are then scarred and branded by the marks and symbols of the demon lord who deemed them worthy and claimed their soul. Whether the heretics serve as a simple trooper or attain the rank of legionnaire, they will be equipped by Hell's armourers with all manner of weapons and armour before heretic priests will beckon them to service at the behest of dark masters. Where a heretic trooper is often little more than simple, untrained chaff, a legionnaire will specialise in a role suited to their warband's needs. Some train in the use of ranged weapons to fell their patrons' enemies from afar, where others meticulously train with brutal melee weapons to tear apart the faithful face to face. While the overwhelming bulk of the Heretic Legion's forces are their basic troopers, with many becoming legionnaires, there are rare individuals who are able to take their pilgrimage further. These are despicable characters who possess a truly dark heart and can even reach the bronze gates of hell itself. Not content with merely getting to the gates, their ambition, wicked soul, unholy faith and incredible willpower will see them pass the Vale of Tears into hell itself. The power of hell and the heat of inferno will deem them worthy to enter as it washes over their bodies, forever burning and charring it with unsealing wounds. The colossal warriors are embraced by the fires of the abyss as they travel to the lake of fire. Upon reaching the lake of fire, they will be proclaimed anointed and deemed worthy of donning the infernal heavy Gehenna armor. Earning the favor of their demonic patrons, they are granted incredible strength and emerge from the mouth of hell with the ability to utilize devastating heavy weapons. It is said that were one to look into the eyes of one of the anointed heavy infantry, they would gaze into the fires of hell itself, forever burning the sight into their vision and racking their minds with a horror. The anointed heavy infantry are well trained, heavily armed and armoured in powerful suits of heavy Gehenna armour. This armour, along with their infernal brand marks, grants them terrible durability and a resistance to the flame weapons of the faithful. Where the heavy anointed infantry are powerful soldiers, they are only as fast as a regular warrior despite their demon lord's blessings. When the heretic legions need to assault a fortified enemy position or destroy the war engines of the faithful, they require something much faster to lead the charge. To enable them to lay waste to enemy fortifications and allow them war machines of their own, the heretics turn to the infernal biologists and weaponsmiths of the warforges of Tartarus. The absolutely twisted geniuses of the Warforgers created true abominations to act as shock beasts. The Warwolf Assault Beast is a warped and twisted terror to engage in combat. These fearless monstrosities will charge through miles of barbed wire to clear a path for their heretical masters. To aid them in the task of clearing obstacles to strike at enemy fortifications, the Warwolves have a uniquely shaped head. Their jaws are shaped to funnel barbed wire into their chainsaw maws. This brutal set of jaws is lined with spinning chainsaw blades, equally as effective at tearing open enemy soldiers as it is at clearing the way for lightning-fast assaults. As this absolutely grotesque warbeast charges down its enemies to rip them apart, it may encounter any number of dangerous traps and obstacles as it speeds forth at the vanguard of its warband. To protect the Warwolf as it rushes forward, it is encased in a unique set of infernal armour, forged in hell and shaped to fit its horrific form. The Warwolves are artificial constructs of unnatural design, created by the smiths of Tartarus, with their armour entangled into their very biology, making them as durable as the anchorites of the faithful. Their long and loping limbs allow them to move at incredible speeds, and any who are in sight of a Warwolf would be hard-pressed to evade its lightning-fast charge. Attempting to outrun them is nearly impossible as they close the range with their enemies at blinding speeds. Aside from their chainsaw maws, the Warwolves have razor-sharp talons on unnervingly human-like hands. These shredding claws are able to tear even the heaviest armour to shreds, and the mere sight of these abominations in battle is enough to strike fear into the most courageous of souls. The Warwolves are not the only artificial creatures used by the warbands of the Heretic Legions though. The Levant is riddled with the impact craters of great artillery guns, and attacking fortifications without the aid of such guns is a difficult task. However, transporting great siege weapons through the treacherous wastes of no man's land is no easy feat, and one that many warbands are ill-equipped to achieve. So, to the Warforgers of Tartarus, the heretics turned once more in order to provide easily mobile artillery support to the heretic warbands. The unnerving artillery witches were created. The artificial constructs resemble a slender human figure and float above the battlefield in eerie silence. When engaged in large-scale conflicts, they may band together in covens, but in the warbands of the Levant they are only seen operating alone or in pairs in warbands of a particularly large size. To see an artillery witch, one would be forgiven for wondering how such a seemingly frail warrior is able to bring about the destruction they are famed for. The answer to this lies in their curious ability to rend open portals in reality, through which they call forth ammunition from the very death factories they were constructed in. As bombs fall from these portals as though being disgorged by the bomb bays of an unseen bomber, they rain destruction and hellfire on unsuspecting foes. The exact method of how an artillery witch does this is unclear, as the witches have never been heard to speak a single word. Goetic magic is strictly speaking off limits to mortals who must beseech a demon for the desired effect, and since they have never been heard to speak a word, how an artillery witch does this beseeching remains a mystery. Whether they are semi-demonic in nature or able to beseech a demon through unknown means, that their methods are unknown makes their devastating effects no less cataclysmic. Due to the artificial nature of an artillery witch, the gas weapons commonly seen wreaking havoc in the trench lines are far less effective at harming these strange creatures, and no obstacle may impede them as they levitate above the battlefield with a terrible and silent grace. While many of the soldiers who accompany the warbands of the Heretic Legions are there by choice, there are many others who are not. Strictly speaking, these may not exactly be heretics, but they will serve their infernal masters all the same. Bought and sold at the slave markets in heretic lands, the Wretched are the unfortunate, disposable cannon fodder of a heretic warband. The slaves of the heretics and court warbands, the unfortunate Wretched, could be debtors who could not pay the high price of a demon lord's favour, or they could have been captured in raids and pressed into service after being sold in the slave markets. A Wretched's life is a grim and terrible one. They are worked to death in the factories of hell or sacrificed as fuel for goetic powers. To avoid this fate, many are offered a choice. Though it is not a particularly good one, the laws of hell are strange, and oddly, though demons are duplicitous and will seek to trick and twist the minds of mortals, they are bound by infernal codes of law. The law of hell states that any Wretched may choose to serve the warbands of hell's forces by volunteering as a form of disposable penal troop. If they do so, they are offered an albeit terrible path to freedom. The law of hell is very clear on this. If one bound to service in hell in such a way is able to perform an act of sufficiently great blasphemy, they may earn the right to their freedom. Often the easiest way for a Wretched to earn their freedom is to kill a holy warrior of God, such as a war prophet, cleric, or leader of a faithful warband. While this is an incredibly difficult task to perform, it is achievable as the Wretched are driven forward ahead of the warband in great swarms, and weight of numbers can outmatch even the mightiest of warriors. To prevent the Wretched from fleeing from their captors as soon as the opportunity arises, they are bound in chains and branded with infernal marks that bind them to service. They are also heavily drugged to degrade their will and sap their wits while leaving aggression intact. The leaders of Heretic Legion warbands will callously discard the lives of the Wretched when at war, caring little for their deaths so long as it serves their dark whims. The sacrifice of a Wretched in service to a demon lord may even grant them the lord's favour, though what reward could result from their death is unknown. If a Wretched were to perform an act that would be sufficient to free them, their infernal shackles will release them, and their unseen bindings will lift, allowing them to flee the battlefield to live to tell the tale. However, without the weight of numbers, this is highly unlikely, as they are equipped with the cheapest weaponry that their warband is able to give them, often fighting with ancient, discarded firearms or rusted and blunted weapons that may as well be nothing more than a simple club. While this video has detailed much of the lore for the forces and history of the Heretic Legions, it is only a brief overview of the main faction as a whole. In future videos I'll be covering the sub-factions associated with each of the major warbands, so if you have a favourite you'd like to see me cover first, let me know in the comments below. To dive into another faction overview, you can click the video link to your left to listen to the lore for the Trench Pilgrims, or to dive deeper into the lore on the channel, click the video link to your right. For discounts on your hobby supplies, check out my affiliate links in the video description, and with that, thank you for watching and I'll see you all soon.